And ladies and gentlemen, that music you're hearing does signify that you are listening to the Roundtable of Terror here on the Big Scary Show once again. As we have done for many, many years, we are counting down towards our 9th anniversary coming up in just a few short weeks. Can you believe that? Wow. And one of the things that we love to do and have done over the past 9 years, of course, one of our main things besides roundtables is visiting conventions, with the big trade show in St. Louis and Midwest and West Coast and all the horror cons out there. And, there was East Coast and National and Canadian, which are no longer with us. HauntCon, so many other conventions out there. All four of us have gone to just numerous ones, interviewed lots and lots of great people, celebrities, vendors, too many people to count actually. But every now and then we like to look out there and we see that new conventions spring up from time to time. And we have found a trio of people now who are in either their first or second year of putting on a convention. We thought we would talk to them, give them a chance to tell us what they're all about. And who knows, in 10 or 20 years, maybe these will be some of the largest conventions in the country. And they all sound very interesting for many different reasons. So let's talk to some brand new convention owners out there. We'll start in Chattanooga, Tennessee with Metrotham Con, which is a multi-fandom convention with a very interesting theming set to us. We've got Mark Norwood with us. Mark, are you there?
I'm here, Drew.
Oh, very nice to have you here. We'll talk about your show in just a moment.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Also going into their second year, someone who's been on the show once or twice, we have Stephanie Freas with the Carolina Fearfest. That'll be going on in Raleigh, North Carolina over Memorial Day. Stephanie, are you there?
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Excellent. Your home is just outside Fayetteville, is that correct?
Yes, I live between Fayetteville and Raleigh, so we thought Raleigh was a good location to put in a new con. So.
Excellent. And can't disagree with you there. And going into their first year, the gentleman we've had on, just a few weeks ago on the news talking about this, but we wanted to expand upon it. We have Paul Lanner with Haunters Against Hate, who is ironically named Haunters Against Hate. The event is happening in Louisville, Kentucky this summer. Paul, are you with us from your home in Lexington?
I am here.
Always good to speak to you, sir. We've had you on just a few weeks ago, but we will elaborate in any new news you have coming down the pike. We also want to introduce our host. Unfortunately, Storm cannot be with us tonight. He is under some family obligations. He's normally with us, but not this time. So we will go straight to Meat Hook Jim in Cincinnati, Ohio.
I'm excited about this. I'm looking forward to seeing conventions again. It's been too long.
Oh, absolutely. And up in Columbus, Ohio, we have the Haunstrumentalist, Jerry Vane.
So you mean to tell me all these people on my screens actually exist? Oh, crap.
My name is Drew Badger. I'm down in Charlotte, North Carolina. We did have somebody representing the Idaho Haunters Halloween and Haunters show that would be coming up this summer, but unfortunately they had a medical emergency. They could not be with us tonight, so we will have them on at a later date. But let's start with Mark. Mark, you've got Metrotham Con, which I assume is a mashup between Gotham and Metropolis. You're a multi-fandom type convention, but yet, from what I understand, you pick a theme every year, and this year your theme is horror. So that's why we wanted to talk to you. Can you elaborate a little bit about what Metrotham Con is all about?
Absolutely. As you said, Metrotham Con is a multi-fandom pop culture convention. And, every year we do a different theme, and we will carry an element of that theme moving forward for every show moving forward. So this year's horror theme. So next year we'll still have an aspect of horror as well. Next year is 80s, and then the year after that we'll still have horror. 80s. We'll keep a part of each theme every year moving forward. And some of the things that we have going on this year is we'll have a haunted attraction It's going to be like a little walk through haunted museum. That's a part of the convention. We'll have escape rooms as well. We have a ton of celebrity guests that are from, the horror community. And I can go through some of those if you would like. Starting with Lisa Wilcox. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her, but she was Alice from Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and 5. Those are my favorite ones. Alice is pretty bad A in those movies. So she'll be there for the whole weekend. We got Andrew Bernarski, who was Leatherface in I guess it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning, the two newer ones, not the most recent one, but the ones before those. He's also in the program, Any Given Sunday, Batman Returns, all kinds of stuff. We've got Bai Ling, who was in The Crow, if you guys remember that. She was in Wild Wild West, Crank. So she's a fantastic guest. If any music fans out there, we've got the co-founder of Megadeth will be in attendance. So David Ellefson will be there all 3 days. So that's pretty cool. That's where the multi-fandom aspect kicks in. We also have some anime voice actors. So kind of pulling a theme from year one, we were anime themed. We've got Vic Mignogna, a new guest who we haven't announced yet, but I'll go ahead and tell you guys here first. Kevin Sorbo, we just locked him in today. That's Hercules from, I guess, the Legendary Journeys of Hercules, the TV show. He was on Andromeda and so many other things. So our guest list, there's several more. It's fantastic for a second year convention. Last year was tough having to postpone. We were originally slated for May 1st through the 3rd. Of course, with the pandemic, we didn't feel it was safe to put on a show, so we postponed. We did, however, do a virtual con, which was very successful. We had several anime voice actors in attendance, and we did live meet and greets, and they signed autographs, and we mailed those out to attendees. We also had a lot of panel content. And then we did a one-day pop-up. It was like a vendor day, community day in downtown Chattanooga outdoors. We had about 400 people in attendance. That was in October, close to Halloween. So yeah, even though we didn't have a show last year, we still made our presence felt.
Wow. I used to work for Comic-Con in San Diego from 89 to 2004. Yeah. And this sounds like Comic-Con without the comic books.
Right.
I'm listening to who you're bringing in. I'm like, dude, I want to go. Yeah, I totally want to go.
And that's the thing, we want it to be all inclusive. I want people from all demographics to come in and enjoy themselves. It's family friendly during the day. We have adult content at night. The guest list is great. The events that we have are great. And we really made a step forward from year one. We were at it was at a small venue, and now we're at the convention center in downtown Chattanooga. So we really took a step forward, and that's somewhere where we can grow into it. And we just want to keep building this thing. And each year, like I said, we have a different theme. Year 3 is Revenge of the 80s. Year 4 is We Love the 90s. Year 5 is the reunion. Year 6 is going to be a wrestling show. So I'm a huge fan of, wrestling, back in the day of Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior and all that stuff. So we'll put on a wrestling show that year, but we'll keep all the aspects that make us multi-fandom.
You had me at Batman, so yeah. There you go.
I'm sure Jim is already looking at his calendar for year 6.
Yes. Yeah. And I have a huge supporting cast. I mean, my volunteers are fantastic. I've got 120 of them. They work year round. We work our butts off. Before COVID, we were at an event every single weekend. We do a weekly live show on Facebook. We have a YouTube channel. We have a gaming channel. We do a podcast. We do everything we possibly can to get the name out there. That's for sure.
Very nice. Very thorough. And I love the fact that you're transitioning a portion of last year's into the next year's and into the next year's and into the next year's. So that's really cool. Stephanie, how about you? I attended Carolina Fearfest, its debut year, had a great time, and you had a lot of good guests at that point. You had some great vendors. You had wrestling going on at that show.
We did. Yeah.
Any of those things coming back? Any new guest announcements or anything like that? Or what is Carolina Fearfest all about? And of course, will there be wrestling again?
Well, we have no plans for wrestling this year. It was kind of a one-off that we did actually because we had Tyler Maine coming in. We were able to, kind of loop in with a local wrestling group, and so we were able to put on some demos and do some things there. We are scaling back for this year in some respects because we wanted to be able to spread out and ensure distancing. So wasn't really sure I had room to drop a wrestling ring in there. But we have this big giant building. The Jim Graham building is like 100,000 square feet. It's just this huge venue. And in 2019, in our debut year, we were already kind of spread out, and our first year attendance was pretty good for a first year show. But we already had distancing folded in with the big giant building as it was. Keep telling people we were COVID before COVID was cool, with the distancing. But we have a lot of good plans for this upcoming year. We are kind of trying to squeeze 10 months worth of planning into 3. So it's a little interesting to get it done. But we have some great guests planned. We have Naomi Grossman from Pepper from American Horror Story. Felissa Rose is coming in, and we're actually doing a couple of film debuts and screening premieres at the Alamo we've partnered up with, so we don't have to try and squeeze them into our building and seating. And she's in actually both of those films, both regionally done films. We have Dave Sheridan coming in. He's also in one of those films. And Damien Maffei we've announced. So we get a little bit of our newer horror in for him. And he is from Strangers Pray at Night and a little bit newer of a film. Rob Mello, who is apparently a fantastic guest. I haven't gotten to meet him yet. He was our killer in the Happy Death Day franchise. And I mean, one that we are just about to announce is Brian Krause, and I'm really excited to meet him. Anybody that was a Charmed fan from back in the day, that's Leo from the show. But it's really interesting to look at his credit list too. He's got a whole lot of horror, a whole lot of independent horror that he's done. So it's going to be fun to meet him. And one big one that if I had the contract, I'd let you know early, but I'm still waiting. I've gotten the verbal, but we're really excited to kind of ramp up our guests a little bit and bring in some new folks. And we have Veronica Carlson. She was in the Hammer films, so back in the 70s. And we really like to, when we're curating our guest list, we would like to make sure that we hit TV, we hit movies, we get old school classics. So CJ Graham, we've got Friday the 13th franchise, we've got new films, get a nice mix of women in horror and across the different decades and different mediums. And we like to do that with our vendor list too. I'd love to say I curate my vendors. I've just lucked into some amazing people. But we like to make sure that we have people that do, handmade art and crafts and writers and oddities. And our tagline is celebrating all things horror. So we try and actually have that go across the whole spectrum of what we do. We have panels that run the gamut of different things. We try and show different kinds of films and celebrate the TV and the music and just everything that we can to try and really pull all of that, the whole genre together, no matter how you find it out there. And this year we had we have plans we're still talking to and trying to finalize, trying to bring some gaming companies in, because actually the Raleigh area is huge for gaming developers and publishers, and so we're trying to get some folks in, see if we can't get some live sanitizable between guests, but some live actual gaming, let people do some trials or set up a few tournaments. we had a huge gaming thing planned, actually board games and tournaments and the whole thing going all weekend. That was our 2020 plan before our plans got changed on us. So we just didn't feel we could bring that whole scope back yet, but we're trying to still integrate the gaming aspect of it as well. So just trying to kind of go across the board with it, and as something that'll be for everybody. If you're a horror fan of any kind, there's a piece of it there, but hopefully you also find something new. And we've also got our art, because we did this our first year, a local artist, and we had them do our official art for the year. And we have another local North Carolina artist that has done our artwork for 21. And luckily he hadn't finished that, and it doesn't say 2020. He was able to stop that, which was good. But it's a fabulous piece. He works in pencil. I'm fascinated by what he's able to do. But we're trying to keep that going too. Just, kind of celebrating our local and regional artwork. We're kind of positioning ourselves as a good size regional con. And so it's nice to pull on our regional talents for film and art, and try and keep that sort of homegrown aspect to it as much as we can as well.
Very nice. You said the Jim Graham building, that's on the North Carolina State Fairgrounds, correct?
Yes, which is nice. We have a big giant building with all the free parking you could possibly want. It doesn't have the hotel attached, so you can't climb up to your room afterwards, but there's so much to offer in that area. So, restaurants, we've got some paranormal pub crawls going on, some after-hour films, the ability to go to a number of places and do parties once we're allowed to gather to that level again. So nice. We're really excited about what the area can provide.
Absolutely. It was a fun show when me and my kids were there.
Yeah.
You mentioned Naomi Grossman. She's an absolute joy to work with. Drew and I actually met her at Halloween Extreme back in 2013 in Florida.
In a hot tub, no less.
I didn't make it to the hot tub.
Oh, I did. That was fun.
But in 2014, my wife and I were at the Canadian Haunted Attractions Conference, and we did a wedding ceremony there, and she was my best woman.
Oh, oh, that's awesome.
So she's a great person. She really is.
You will love working with her. So Paul, we had you on the show a few weeks ago on Big Scary News. So hopefully some of the questions will not be redundant too much. But I know you've had some updates since we've talked last for a first year convention. You're going big, go big or go home, I always hear. But tell us about Haunters Against Hate, what's going to be going on for your show.
Basically what I'm doing, Haunters Against Hate has been in existence now for almost 5 years. And what I wanted to do was merge the LGBT community with the haunt community, with the horror community under one roof, and where everyone feels welcome, accepted, no judgments, and they could just be themselves. So I'm having a combo of haunted houses that are going to have booths, horror merchandise, and artists. And then I'm also having LGBT youth organizations there that can promote their organizations as well. So it's kind of a merging of everything. And the ultimate goal is all the profits from it will be donated to LGBT youth organizations across the US. So that's pretty awesome. The big thing though that I'm pushing is, as you know, there have been the Book of Haunters. I've had 5 volumes and a Book of Clowns. And the big thing is I put out to the people that have been in these books to come to the convention, almost like an alumni. You can see behind me that some of the people who are attending, and I want to turn it almost into like people can get their books and they can have them autographed, almost like yearbooks or playbills, something like that. And I'm having lanyards made for the actors, the haunt actors, so they can like hole punch which book they were in so people know. And celebrities, not too much yet. I'm having Lori Cardille, who was the star of George Romero's Day of the Dead. And I'm having her because I met her 4 years ago, and I was wearing a Haunters Against Hate shirt, and she asked me about it, and I told her all about the organization. And she was so enthused by it, and we kept in touch through the years. And she always promoted it on her social media, and she wrote the introduction for Volume 5. So she will be at the convention. And then Ricky Vitas, who was one of the artists on Sci-Fi's Face Off, who was transgender, is going to be at the convention as well to do displays and also do a panel, a discussion about, well, actually, I'm going to be having a panel about LGBT community and the haunt industry with different actors from different haunts across the US and Ricky. So that should be interesting. You know, it's just, there's been a lot of hate lately going on, especially in the industry against, say, transgender people. So I think it needs to be addressed and show how people have to be more accepting and how to understand. It's important. It really is. And I mean, even I've been to conventions and I've had people look at my booth and like turn away and like snub me. And it's like, I'm not going to let that happen at my convention with anyone. It's like, I want everyone to feel welcome. So that's the big thing. It's like, it's, you know, I sell the books online. I go to Trans World. I do the t-shirts. So it's like the profits trickle in steadily, but slowly, where with this event, I can raise, hopefully, a large portion of money and donate it to appropriate organizations. So that was my big goal for this. So we will see what happens. I'm starting off with 65 booths, and I only have about 10 left now at this point, which is great, which I'm really pleased for a first year event. So that's Haunters Against Hate, the event.
Very nice. Mark, let's go back to you. And this question will be for everybody. What does it take to put together a convention? I mean, there's got to be so much planning and so much work and so much this and so much that. How difficult a job? I mean, is this literally a full-time job for somebody if they're just by themselves? Like, I have no clue how to even begin one. How do you get started in this?
I think the first thing, and I just recently had someone reach out to me who's looking to start a local convention in a city nearby. And the first thing I told him was, you got to have a vision first. And then you need to have a plan on how you're going to execute that vision. And then second, you need a venue. You can't have a show without a venue. So you got to search around your local communities, whether it be a hotel or a gymnasium or a convention center or whatever. So you got to lock in your venue, and then you got to have a supporting staff. You know, you got to have that support. One person can't do everything. I'm probably one of the rare people out there who gets maybe 3 to 4 hours sleep every night. So I do a lot of our stuff as far as running the website, doing all the social media stuff. I do a lot of our videography. I book the celebrities, all that good stuff. But my staff, as far as spreading the word and getting the name out there, they go above and beyond. Those guys are out there every weekend, hitting the streets, you know, putting out the flyers, you know, getting the word out like, hey, this is going to happen this year. But like you said, it is difficult. There's a lot of logistics that go into it. There's a lot of things that, you know, you may miss, and that's okay. You know, you're not going to get everything perfect. Some things are going to come up during the actual weekend of the show, and it's on how you handle it. You know, there's celebrity contracts you got to sign. You know, you got to get versed in that stuff. You got to book flights, hotels, work out deals with, you know, local establishments. Like, we feed all of our vendors. So I've got a lot of local businesses, local restaurants that donate food to us. So we are able to feed all of our vendors and staff and celebrities and all that stuff. So the green room is open to vendors. That's a nice touch. Vendors are kind of the lifeblood of a convention. They pay for the venue, essentially. So we want to treat them with the utmost respect, because without them, there wouldn't be a show. So that's a huge thing. And vendors, they talk. So if they don't have a good time, or they're treated wrong at your show, they're going to tell all the other people, and it can be, damning to your show. So we truly want to treat everybody as best we can. I have a celebrity handlers team. They hold weekly meetings. They know every single thing about every single celebrity that we have. They even know what candy bars they like. They're creating baskets, personalized baskets for every single celebrity that we have. I mean, those guys are fantastic. I just got off a call with them before this, and they know their stuff. And celebrities are huge. They talk too. If they come and have a good time, and let's say they have a guarantee, maybe next time you want to bring them back, they had so much fun, they'll waive that guarantee. You know, it's all on how you treat people. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. Don't go into it expecting to make money. You're not going to do that. It's not a thing where you're going to get rich overnight. I do it because I love doing it. I love providing a meeting place, a gathering place for people who are like-minded, to make new friendships and to just have fun. And after the year we had last year, people need some fun in their life right now. And we're going to do it as safe as humanly possible. COVID has added a whole nother element to that, whether you're going to require masks, which we are, limiting capacity to your vendor hall and your main event areas, doing temperature checks at your main entryways, having all the signage down, the floor stickers, spacing out your vendors, spacing out your chairs in your main stage area. We even have like plastic microphone covers for every time somebody goes up, a different person comes up, we change them out, sanitize the microphone. We're limiting capacity. We're just going above and beyond with all that stuff. And, you got to have help. So that's a big thing too. If you're going to run a show or start a show, have your vision, have a plan, have a venue, have a supporting staff, and kind of expect to not make money, because you're not going to do that. If you're doing this to make money, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. I love putting smiles on people's faces and watching them be like, man, I had so much fun at Metrotham Con. That's worth all the money in the world to me. So that's why we do it. And like there's a ton of work that goes into it. So.
Stephanie, how about you? How difficult was it to start off year one doing this, and versus say this year, now that you had at least a year and an additional year to prepare for it?
It's definitely the first year is a little difficult because you're new and you're trying to prove yourself. So you have vendors asking a lot of questions. Do they want to invest in you and give up a weekend to come and sell at a show that's an unknown? The celebrities, same concept. Just everybody was far more kind of strict on those guarantees. More concerned about them for a first year show. So because there's just too many unknowns. Same thing with the second show following on COVID. There's still a lot of unknowns, and that is playing in with people a lot. But Mark was absolutely right. If you're going to do this right, you have to plan on not making any money on it. The goal is to just break even and have enough to do another year. That's all you're really, really looking for. But it's the feedback that I get from, like he said, not just the people that had a great time when they were there, but feedback from some of our celebrities last time, some of the vendors, changes that we've made. So for instance, with our vendors, because we were changing the floor layout, there's no corners anymore. Everybody gets a corner. I'm spreading you all out. I see to me, it doesn't make sense, and it's not fair to charge a premium upcharge to those vendors to get something I'm giving to everybody. So when I put my email out and said, there's no more corners, and if you've already paid me, I'll refund you. And I get emails and phone calls from vendors going, this is why I'll always do your shows, because you're fair with us and you're upfront with us and you're not trying to put ridiculous numbers on the values of things. And, you know, we would rather let them come on board and grow with us. And, you know, as we go and everybody's happy. Celebs the same way. One of their folks last year actually said to my husband on that weekend that your wife, I've seen her 20 times today. 20. Usually running past me at speed with a clipboard in her hand, but I've seen her. And she stopped at my table at least twice today and said, how you doing? You okay? You need anything? And she said, I can't tell you how many shows that I don't see the showrunner, I don't see the people in charge unless they're over at the big celebrities table and they don't even speak to you the entire weekend. And to me, that doesn't make sense. They gave up their weekend to come in and help my show. So everybody gets welcomed. I don't get that. But, you know, so it's just finding that different approach and making sure you're doing a show that you can be proud of, regardless of the size. And, you know, just preparing for everything. A con isn't much different than a lot of other events. The logistics planning is the same kind of across the board. But it's just at the end of the day, do I feel like I treated everybody fairly and everybody had a good time? And, you know, did we put on a good show? We did everything we could do to make it what we wanted it to be. And then, you know, kind of grow from there. Yeah, the COVID adds a whole, like you said, a whole new layer to the planning. It changes a lot. I don't want to put in so many restrictions that people can't gather and have fun, but at the same time, you don't want it to be perceived like we're those greedy people after $1 and that's the only reason we're doing the show. So it's a huge balancing act and making sure people can be safe. And I'm going to get yelled at either way. So you know, if I don't require enough, I'll have people yelling at me that I'm doing too little. I'll still have somebody complain that I'm going to make them wear masks. I know it's going to, that's kind of the way it is. Just try and make as well-rounded an event as you can so that everybody can find something about your event that they truly enjoy.
Very nice. Paul, I know this is your first year, so we haven't really seen how things have reacted and what the people who attended. Well, I'm sure we'll find out after the event, but how long were you thinking about putting on a convention and how was the logistics for your event?
I started thinking about this last year during lockdown when we were all locked down in COVID. I was thinking about, you know what, maybe it's time to take Haunters Against Hate to another level and create an event that I could have people come to. And like you said, I want everyone to feel welcome, to feel comfortable, to enjoy themselves. I don't know if there will be a profit, and it may be a small profit, but like I said, it's not coming to me. I don't want it. This is going to organizations. I am not in this for the money. I do not want to be in this for the money. That's not what it's about. It's about helping people. When I get an email from, you know, someone who's 14 years old saying she met me at Trans World and just by me giving her a pin changed her life and made her feel good about how she was, that's what it's all about to me. And another big thing that, you know, aside from the haunts that are going to be there, from the horror merchandise vendors, which I'm so excited for. I know a lot of them from previous conventions, having met them. So it's almost like a family, which is great. But I'm having a special award show. And one of the awards is the Haunters Against Hate Jesse McDonald Memorial Award. And this was an actor who was with Zombie Army Productions. And he went in for surgery last year and due to complications passed away. And he was been in 2 of my books, and we've chatted quite a bit. We never met, but we conversed quite a bit. And you know, I want to show heart, so I'm creating this memorial award, and it's going to be presented to someone in Zombie Army Productions. And I even got his mother to come to the event. She's going to present the award, so it's going to be pretty emotional for sure. And she doesn't know this yet, but a lot of the actors from Zombie Army are coming. And her son used to carry around a bat, and they've laminated it with everyone's signature, and they're going to surprise her with it. which is awesome. So, and there's going to be also, I'm giving a Haunters Against Hate Haunter of the Year award to a haunter that's based out of Wisconsin who stood up to religious fanatics that were outside his haunt, protesting and, signs everywhere. And he stood up to them in his costume with a cowbell, ringing it, and did that week after week until they finally left. And I felt that was worthy of getting the Haunter of the Year award, because you're showing what Haunters Against Hate is all about. So yes, it's wonderful. I'm having these vendors, I'm having the haunts, I'm having a few celebrities, not many, but to me, it's more about the haunters and the actors and making them realize that they are they're celebrities unto themselves. I want them to feel welcome. So, but it's daunting. It's definitely daunting. You do one thing and 5 more things pop up that you have to do. And it's challenging, but I'm so used to being a control freak but I'm not. I've doled out responsibilities to the appropriate people, so I'm not overwhelmed by it. So, the hotel and all the booking, I have a friend who runs events and he helped me with that. I have people setting up the stage for me. One of the people who works at, I think, Horror Hound, who's dealt with celebrities, he's going to be handling Lori Cardille and stuff like that. So I'm doling it out. So I'm hoping not to be super overwhelmed, because I want to be able to go up to each vendor and chat with them and converse with them and welcome them into this first time event, because you're right. It's a risk. They don't know how it's going to go. I don't know how it's going to go. We'll see. But it's something I felt like I had to do.
Absolutely. I want to remind everybody you are listening to the Roundtable of Terror here on the Big Scary Show with our very special guests, Mark Norwood, Paul Lanner, and Stephanie Freas, along with our usual host, minus Storm. We're going to take a very short break right here, and we'll be right back.
Ready to dress up your show? Need to pump new life into old props? Just want to show something no one else has? Do what Alice Cooper, Distortions Unlimited, and A-list haunters all over the world do. Wear Von Charon. Durable, handcrafted, dependable year after year. Von Charon. When you scare enough to wear the very best. VonCharon.com. VonCharon.com.
And we're back to the Roundtable of Terror with our very special guests, Stephanie Freas from the Carolina Fearfest, Mark Norwood from Metrotham Con, Paul Lanner from Haunters Against Hate, the event, our usual co-host, minus Storm. And a question that I had for you guys, and let's start with Paul on this one. You're fortunate enough to be holding this in Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville has got a very large haunted house scene, and I would imagine that they are throwing behind a lot of their support. What has been the support system behind all of yours? I mean, Chattanooga, I don't know much about the haunt scene there. I know there's not a lot of professional quote-unquote haunted houses in the Raleigh area, but what has been your support system? Has it been primarily the horror fans? Has it been the haunted house community? I know Paul is bringing in, several haunted houses at his event that'll be putting up booths. Or have you reached out to your local haunted houses? I know, Stephanie, at Carolina Fearfest, you had haunters there last year, but they weren't from Raleigh. They were from other parts of the state. But Paul, how about you? What has been the reaction and the support system that you've been getting when you first announced that this event was going to happen?
It was such strong support, and especially from the haunts that are members of Haunters Against Hate. And you're right, in Louisville, there is a big haunt community, and the haunts have jumped on board to be part of it and want to be part of it. In fact, one of the haunts will be hosting an after-hour party on Saturday evening for the event. And I have a haunt coming from Pennsylvania, another one, I believe, from Ohio, and they've all gotten together and created a subgroup from Haunters Against Hate, the event, and they're talking about creating a walk-through haunted house at my event that they will put together. And I'm like, that's fine. So the support has been amazing. It's really wonderful. And I'll keep reaching out to other haunts along the way and see how it goes. But I've been thrilled. I really have. There's haunts coming in from Indiana as well.
Very nice. Now, Stephanie, I know that you had some haunts, as we mentioned. What has been the reaction from the community at large, and what was the reaction from Raleigh? Because, you know, everybody seems to have those conventions up in the Charlotte area, thankfully. But Raleigh had sorely been lacking. And then, you know, after year one, what was the reaction from the haunting community and the local community at large?
The horror fans are super excited. There's a lot of it's finally in my backyard. Because you know, the nearest one, you've got Scares That Care up in Virginia, you've got a couple that have hit the Charlotte area, go down to Atlanta. By the time you take the entire weekend and get a hotel room and board the dogs to drive from the Raleigh area off to one of those other show areas, you know, you've spent all your vendor fund money for the whole weekend. So a lot of people are very excited. I'm finding that a lot more of my sales are one-day sales, one-day ticket sales, because they're not having to travel in. They don't need to do the whole weekend thing. So I am finding that, but on a normal year, we just are trying to design our programming around having enough things sprinkled across a whole 3-day period that it's, even if you're local, still justified to want to come. The haunts, though, I mean, we've got a haunt of our own that we also do in the fall, which is why I do my spring horror show. The haunters, some of the bigger haunts in North Carolina come and have a presence. They bring their characters out and have them stalking around, and they really enjoy being there because it's a gathering of our community, and it's nice for the haunts to go to a horror con, specifically because you know every single person that walks through that door is likely a good customer for you. We do market for our haunt at some of the Comic Cons in the area, and you get a lot of people that you ask them if they're a horror fan, they go, oh, no, I don't go to haunts. I don't do that. So it's a little bit, you know, you got to kind of find your crowd in that type of an environment. But, you know, at a horror con, it's pretty well built in and they really have fun. We had plans to do a whole get the haunters together, and COVID actually brought a lot of us together on Facebook, a lot more talking and working how we were going to make this stuff work. So, you know, we've got a lot more connections with a lot of haunters, and my plan was to try and kind of just have one whole aisle of the horror con just be nothing but characters. So you kind of have to run the gauntlet to get through there and just let them have a little bit of fun and really turn it loose. We just with COVID, we kind of put that off to the side. So in future years, we'll probably try and boost that haunt presence up quite a bit if we can. So.
Now, Mark, last year your first year was an anime-based convention, so I'm sure that you had the support of the anime community in the Chattanooga area. But as far as haunts go, I know there's a few in the area. I know that Nashville and Knoxville and even Atlanta people would travel to Chattanooga for things. But how has the Southern Tennessee local community and the haunt community responded to Metrotham Con?
So there are a ton of horror fans in this area, but there's not a lot of haunts. So there's not that many haunted houses to go to during the season. And with that being the issue, we kind of are doing our own thing at the convention. We've created our own haunt with the assistance of a guy named Jeff Stringer. He runs Lake Winnebasoka. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that amusement park we have here in the local area, but they do a haunted house during the season every year, and he runs that. So he's come on board to help us put on our haunt, and we'll continue to have our haunted attraction every year moving forward. So we'll keep that horror aspect. That's the one thing we'll keep moving forward. All In Adventures, which is an escape room company that's here local, is doing our escape rooms. They're all horror themed. I've helped with the designs of those as well. One thing that I thought touched on what Stephanie said, in our vendor hall, we've got what's called Sleepy Hollow. And I've got kind of like a valley where we've got all of our horror vendors. We've got about 40 horror vendors. We got 144 vendor spots in total. 40 of those being or horror based, and they're all kind of there together. And I've told them go all out, as far as the way they merchandise their booths and dress up in cosplay. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a nice little arched entryway that kind of shows you like, hey, this is the horror part of the vendor floor. And that's kind of how we'll do it every year moving forward with our different themes. So we're still multi-fandom, but a nice portion of our show is that theme. But as far as local support, there's not a whole lot, just because there's not a lot in the local area. There are several groups coming up that from Atlanta. I guess I'm not real knowledgeable on like the clown community, but there's several of those that are coming out in support. But that's kind of the gist of our haunt and the support in the horror community.
Okay. I know that I was at a convention in Knoxville for the last year or two, and they have had a large clown contingency there.
Yes.
And, I don't know if you've reached out to them or not, but obviously. Paul, I know during the break you had a question for everybody that you probably should revisit here because I think it's important to ask.
My question was how, with COVID and with our conventions coming up and how things have been so fluid, how do you deal with the vaccine rollout and how do you address that? And do you request people, are you able to say, hey, have you had the vaccine? But does that oversteps boundaries and violations? So it's a very fluid situation. How is it addressed?
Yeah. And I'll touch on what I said too, like as far as what we're doing at Metrotham Con, we won't ask people if they've been vaccinated. That touches into that HIPAA area. So we kind of want to stay away from that. And it's just one of those things where we just got to follow all the mandates, be as safe as we possibly can. If anybody's showing symptoms or they're running a temperature, we need to ask them to leave, ask all the qualifying questions that lets them into your venue. Like if you go to an establishment and they're like, hey, have you had any symptoms? You got to do those things. I think it's very important for a showrunner to make for sure in your clause that you put like, hey, we're going to make this as safe as possible, but you're coming out, you could potentially be exposed to COVID, and we're not liable for that. You chose to come here because you do have to cover yourself and your show, because the worst case scenario, somebody contracts COVID and they try to sue your show. That's a real life concern for a showrunner during COVID. So you do have to address those things and make for sure people understand like, hey, you're coming here of your own free will. Everything, in our clause, our guidelines says like, hey, you're doing this at your own risk type thing. And just make it as safe as possible. That's all I'll say.
And on the note of being your concern as a showrunner, and I do this with a number of events. I do it at my haunt, and do it for the convention, especially with COVID. Before you open, and if you have a show photographer, go through and take photos. Take photos of all your signs that are put up. Take photos of your volunteers standing next to the you got to wear a mask. All of your warning signs, photos that you put out, hand sanitizer stations, do those throughout the weekend. You do that kind of thing because somebody could come back and say, well, I got COVID because they didn't do. But if you can show that you did all of the reasonable things that on that date were mandated and expected, it's helpful because it just helps to show you did the stuff. And you tend to, on show day, get more concerned with, are the celebrities taken care of? Is everyone where they're supposed to be? Is everyone having a good time? And you tend to forget about that foundation piece of, just making sure that, yes, all of our ducks were in a row. We had all of our signs up, all of our things were where they were supposed to be. But, we feel the same way. It's not appropriate for us to inject ourselves into somebody's vaccination plan. It's not my concern whether they had an opportunity to get vaccinated or medically shouldn't. And I can't get in the middle of that. They're going to make their own decisions with their own medical teams. We're just going to go with the, best safe practice of the day when it's time to open. And if that involves wearing a mask, it involves wearing the mask. We're already dropping verbiage with people like our vendors, saying things like, at this point, we're expecting masks, and your being vaccinated doesn't relinquish your requirement to be, the good social conscious human being to your fellow man and do what we feel is the right thing. So I'm fully through both shots and vaccinated, and I still pop that mask on my face when I go in the grocery store, when I go anywhere else, and I'm expecting to wear it all weekend long. So it's one of those things. It can't be too much to ask. So we're kind of hoping everybody just politely follows along with whatever the requests are.
Any questions from the hosts? None? I'm shocked. Yeah, Jim, I figured you'd have something.
Where's that sound effect at?
Where's Storm?
Yeah, Storm would have stuff. Unfortunately, he is, not here, but
the marketing weasel.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. How are you guys marketing your various haunts, your various events? Are you marketing more to the horror community, to the haunt community, to anybody that's willing to buy a ticket?
I'll go first. Since we're multi-fandom, it's just everybody. We're just geared a little bit more towards horror because that's our theme. And as far as marketing goes, it's been very challenging to say the least. Like I said earlier, pre-COVID, we were at an event every single weekend. We were at movie theaters, set up advertising, local establishments. We do a live show weekly every Monday at 8 p.m. on Facebook Live. That's one avenue that we use to market and advertise. But with COVID, it's different. You don't have those events to go to and get your name out there, especially when you're a new convention. That's kind of what you need. You need that grassroots approach, where you can get in front of people and have a conversation with them and get them excited about your event. And we've lost that. So really all we have is social media and flyer days and billboards and podcasts and things like that. We're so dependent on social media at this point, and hopefully that works out, but it definitely will hurt a lot of the smaller conventions to not be able to get out there and promote their show like they could in the past.
So I do have a question for our guests, and it regards the press. I mean, press that shows up to your shows. I mean, are you going to handle the press any differently, or is it just going to be like you're handling everybody else at the show? I mean, the press obviously is going to have to wear their masks as well. Being the three of us are the press, and I may be attending Haunters Against Hate. Any special things for as far as get the press and interviewing people? Is there any type of I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, special arrangements you're going to make for the press, or is it just going to be like we've always done it at conventions?
We're planning on keeping ours pretty much the same. A lot of our celeb Q&As, we're actually live streaming our entire event with some pre-recorded content, but for our press pass people, obviously a lot of them at this point have the microphone on a stick. They can do a little bit more interviews where they're not quite as close, and that's just kind of our expectation. And we're sending out a lot of our press releases out. So if we can pull in any of the more network stations out of Raleigh and they want to come out, hopefully we'll be able to get them, out on a bit of a schedule so that we can let them go in and film and do a few things where, we can keep that distancing and everything in place. The only person that has a press pass currently that I'm putting any restrictions on is Drew, I'll be honest, because at my first show in 2019, he decided to interview me, but he waited until Sunday to do it. And at that point, I had lost my voice to the point where that whole interview was just, it was great. We had a good time. It was horrible.
It was the best interview of the weekend.
You have the right to kick him in the junk if he does that again.
Yeah, he's going to have to talk to me earlier on before I've completely lost my voice. I tried to order pizza for all the volunteers and the staff and everybody for Sunday night afterwards. The woman at the pizza place said, hello. I opened my mouth, not a single sound came out, and I just handed the phone to somebody else and just went, I couldn't do a thing. It was horrible. But no, I mean, the other press regulations, we're not planning on changing anything. It hadn't really occurred to me because I know that they'll come in and kind of play along. They'll wear their mask. They'll do what they need to do. A lot of them come in and record. So those are all professionals. I actually hadn't thought too much about changing any regulations or policies for them. So I'm certainly open to ideas.
Okay.
That's a good question. And I have thought about one aspect of it. Some of our press that have come to the show or our one-day pop-up events, they'll stop a celebrity like in the hallway and people will gather kind of around them. So we have a designated spot and times blocked off for any press to go and talk to any celebrities or anybody that they're wanting to interview. And it's a separate room kind of off to itself where, attendees can't gather around and create a crowd because they're wanting to talk to the celebrity, while you're doing an interview or whatnot. So that's one thing. That's probably the one thing that will change a little bit.
Okay. All right. Paul, being this is the first event, any different plans for press or?
Right now, currently, the secretary of the board is working on getting press connections in Louisville to have them come. I am planning on, I've had flyers and cards made up and I want to distribute them to all the LGBT clubs and bars in Louisville and Lexington. And another actually pretty big, in a way, their press, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, which is a nationwide organization. And each house has like for example, there's a Louisville house. So they're the Derby City Sisters and they will be at the event. The Lexington Sisters, who are known as the Kentucky Fried Sisters, will be there. And they promote everything also. So, and they'll be there and whenever they're anywhere, they get press up the wazoo. If you could Google them, look them up, you'll see why. I mean, it started back in the 80s because of the AIDS crisis in San Francisco, and they've been going ever since. So I'm having lots of sisters there. But the secretary is working on getting some press, and I'm going to reach out also to some of the LGBT magazines that are based out of Louisville and Lexington to see if they can come and cover the event as well.
I know a conversation that I had with Stephanie after the first one for the second one, which unfortunately didn't happen last year. But an idea maybe for the two of you is to have a podcasters row, so to speak, a small area off to the side with maybe a few tables where different podcasts locally and otherwise can come in and interview people at either their table or at least they'll have access, because as soon as you give that access, or at least you announce that, everybody who's got a podcast is probably going to come talking to you and say, hey, I'd like to have you on my podcast and talk about your show. And they all have built-in audiences, especially the local ones. So I think everybody wins at that point. You brought in some people who are absolutely going to give you some press, and they get the opportunity to, talk to vendors, talk to celebrities, talk to whoever, so they have content. And maybe that is something you can pursue, if not this year, at least in future years.
Yeah, something
Stephanie.
that we did look at. It's tough with our venue just because it's one big giant open space, so you don't get a lot of audio control very easily. But we're playing with it a little bit this year. The other thing that I'm doing is limiting our press pass. The applications that we get for press, we have like 3 or 4 groups that are coming in. I've cut it off at that point, but I will allow more if it's, say the local TV station that wants to come down and do a quick happening this weekend kind of post, film something. But those people I can control. They're going to come in for just a short burst, do a little film, interview 1 or 2 people, and gone. So, most of our going to run around all weekend long podcast folks like Drew will be there. No, that's a press pass for the weekend. And so he'll be able to run and get in there. But if he ends up in a situation with access to one of the celebs, I don't have a whole bunch of them coming to me and saying, I couldn't get to this person. I couldn't interview that person. And we can help facilitate things on the fly if we need to. And as we get bigger, there's plans to have an early entry kind of interview hour time, so that they got a little bit, either the podcasters sit in place and I sort of run celebs in there one at a time, or the ability to have my celebs only available for, kind of a breakfast hour just for our podcast and local press folks.
Very nice.
Okay. That's that works out. I think that your idea, Stephanie, works out pretty well because, during the conventions, the last thing that us as podcasters want to do is take away from the fans, which, it seems to be, sometimes that's the only time we can get a hold of them, but, the fans are more important than we are. And if we've just got that little bit of time to talk to them before the fans hit them, I think that works out well.
We've learned our lesson, the amount of restraining orders we've gotten because of Drew is just getting stupid. So every time we send them somewhere, we have to send them with a lanyard going, my lawyer said.
That's why I'm only allowed to deal with certain people's handlers as opposed to, well, we won't get into that. But
am I going to get you to perform, Drew?
Apparently, we've lost Drew.
Are great to us, love to talk to us, and others, it's like, let's talk to my person first, and if I'm not busy, maybe I'll grant you a moment or two. But that's what celebrities are there to, basically meet fans and make money, and we do not want to detract from either of those.
I don't think you heard what you said, Paul.
Yeah.
Are you going to perform, Drew, at my event?
Oh, I unfortunately cannot be at your event because I'm committed to a show in Virginia that weekend. Jim might be willing to perform. Jim has a couple of interesting characters.
You gonna make me do that?
Jinx might need to make an appearance, or Kinks might need to make an appearance.
That's not a bad idea.
Oh Lord, what have I started?
Hey,
I guarantee you it'll attract press.
and Princess Trainwreck will attract flies, but hey.
Yeah, that's why Princess Trainwreck is not appearing at Haunters Against Hate this year. Maybe next year. We'll have to see.
Well, I'm humiliating myself. There's 5 of us getting together, and we're going to be the Spice Bears. So it should be interesting. and with my drag name, which is Chulita Pepsi. So.
Oh, God.
Well, Kinks is my female clown character.
Okay.
That means
there's a story behind that, but we don't have to go into that.
That means that's just him on Saturdays on a regular basis, but whatever. It is Hamilton, Ohio. You never know.
Well, I will say that one thing we didn't touch on, and Paul being new, I mean, you've got a lot of connections and networking that's working for you, and that's awesome. Another thing is table trades with other shows. So providing a table space as an outlet for you to market your your event coming up or your organization, and then they can have a space at your show, and it costs you what you are renting that table and skirting and stuff for. It's very inexpensive. It shows that there's plenty of room for all the conventions, so it's nice to work together with a lot of others. And having said that, mine runs what 2 months before yours, and we're not that far from you out of Louisville. And again, we had Ricky in 2019, amazing, fabulous guest. We also have one of our panel plans, and we're still sketching that out for this year, but it's on the list, is to actually have a professor at one of the universities here that wants to do a panel on transgender in horror. So some of the way that plays out in I'm trying to remember exactly the full scope of what the panel was about. But again, I mean, that's part of our whole, we like to touch on everything, and we would love to have you. So
Thank you.
Absolutely get me afterwards if it's something that you would like to come out and have a chance to set up and educate about. Not to mention our haunt in the fall, because I hadn't really heard about Haunters Against Hate much until Hunter, one of my haunters, actually brought it to my attention after appearing with you, and I think it's fabulous. So I'd love to layer it in where we can.
Over the past almost 5 years, just by my T-shirts and books, I've raised $30,000 for LGBT organizations across the U.S. So I've definitely busted my butt over these 5 years.
Yeah,
for sure. But it's interesting you say that, because I actually thought about reaching out to a woman named Jennifer, I think it's Jennifer, who runs CreepyCon in Knoxville, and asking if she wanted to have a booth at my event. So that actually was in my head. So I think it's great that you brought it up.
You will find some are very, very receptive to it. Others are not so much. We actually buy a vendor space at other conventions just to get in front of the attendees. So sometimes it just becomes a marketing cost for you. But if you can increase that network, it's certainly worth it, because there are fans that have never heard of your show, and it's a chance to get in front of them.
Not to mention that vendors too, if you are a vendor and you're attending the show in Chattanooga and you see that, a month later there's a show in Raleigh that I had not heard of, here's an opportunity for me to vend my wares at this show, and vice versa as well. So, the cross promotion between vendors.
Oh yeah, and volunteers. I pulled some of my greatest people that we sort of stumbled across, just stopped and talked to us at a Comic-Con or some other event that we had, and I would have volunteers from that event run by and go, I just volunteered all of them, I love it, and they join up on our list too. It's just a great way to stay relevant and be out there, and the networking across the board is amazing, really.
I think it's a great idea.
I have a friend of mine who is almost a professional volunteer at this time. He works at, Mad Monster in Charlotte. He goes down to Days of the Dead in Atlanta. He does basically every horror con in North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, anything he can drive through. If he has that schedule, he is volunteering for that show. So, the cross promotion between the shows is just so important out there.
And another aspect of that too, it's really good to go to other shows and kind of get the pulse of attendees and vendors, because they'll talk to you, and you can kind of see what works and what didn't work, and you can kind of help yourself formulate a plan of like, okay, I want to do this, and there's nothing wrong with picking things out that work at other shows. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. And I would strongly advise that. That will help you, pick little bits and pieces from different shows that will help, improve yours.
Yeah, especially if you're going to them and falling under the vendor category for their show. Now you get to see, well, they loaded us in and this was a nightmare. And I got no emails until the day before the show. And so there was no communication. And different little aspects of the way they did it that you can see didn't work, and you get to tweak and improve yourself that way as well. So that's a lot of my stuff went on the list because I went somewhere, experienced something that was awful. So,
And the good thing, I like being able, like I vended at Days of the Dead, which was a horror con, which a lot of horror people are very unaware of Haunters Against Hate because it's more geared to the haunted house industry. And a lot of people were intrigued by it and very supportive. So, and being able to explain what it was all about and what started and everything. And I didn't think I would do very well at a horror con, and I ended up doing exceptionally well there. So, and the thing I just did recently with a spate of t-shirts that I designed is I did movie homage t-shirts. So like an Evil Dead, Rosemary's Baby, The Craft, Hocus Pocus. And I could actually bring those to a horror convention because they would be popular, I think.
Nice. Other suggestion for you, if you know you're going to a show and you're designing t-shirts, make sure you design something out of the franchise that some of those guests have been in, because that way they have the opportunity to buy a t-shirt from you that they can then go have signed from that celeb, from that is attached to that movie. And so anywhere you can do those tie-ins are also very popular too.
I did it with Elvira. I gave her one of the Haunters Against Hate shirts. She wanted one. And the thing is, I would love to reach out to her to come to my event, but I just, at this time, first year, I think it would just be too costly, most likely. So it's like, I have to hold off on that. But I think she would be a great asset because she's such a big supporter of the LGBT community. But it's like, you know, slowly, everything takes its time, so.
One thing you can do too, Paul, is your badge artwork. Make for sure that it includes elements of your guest as well. That's what we do every year, because believe it or not, a lot of people like to get their badges autographed, especially if it has those specific characters on them.
Okay.
So that's a nice little touch too.
Okay, I will do that because I have high-res art from both Lori and Ricky, so I can definitely put that together.
Any other questions from the hosts? Well, guys, we're looking at the clock here, and we've run over an hour, and we need to start winding this down. This has been a lot of fun, a lot of informativeness, and if you're in, Kentucky or the Carolinas or Tennessee, and you were unaware of these shows, maybe this is something you need to put on your calendar and go check out all these different events that are coming up, because we've all been shut in for a year. We're all dying to get out and see something and see some people and see some cool stuff. And Lord knows we need conventions back. And we are so thankful that folks like we have on our show tonight are bringing conventions back and maybe bringing a little bit of normalcy to the horror and haunt world. But of course, this is the time of the show we like to affectionately call the plugs. So let's go ladies first with Stephanie. How can people get more information about Carolina Fearfest, where it's going to be, the dates, where can they get tickets if they're on sale now? What are some websites and social media sites where people can get all that information?
Okay, well, it's carolinafearfest.com. That is our website with links to everything. We have our Facebook page, also Carolina Fearfest, and we have a Facebook event page for the actual convention. All of those things have links off to tickets. The tickets are on sale. Early bird on those ends at the end of April. So the prices do go up for May. One of the changes that we're making from 2019 is that we are not doing at-the-door sales. So it is all online. That's what will help us just remove one more major touch point from the event and let us get everybody in there and shopping faster. But we're also on Instagram and Twitter. We're starting up a YouTube channel. We've got a lot of plans for things that we're doing with the YouTube channel. We're going to put up some of our recordings from 2019, and we've got a lot of plans for new things. For instance, we had death greet all of our guests at the hotel in 2019. Yanked them out of the hearse and and we had Linnea Quigley beat the crap out of death. You're not taking me, and just Michael Berryman hovering over him was amazing. It was just a fun little thing we did with our celebs as they were coming in. We can't do much of that with this year, but we're putting all that content out there and trying to do a lot of social engagement, some trivia things and some ticket giveaways, and some things are on the calendar. So we're really excited about it. And then if you're in the Carolinas, we've got the Devil's Playground haunted attraction that we do in the fall.
That is your haunted house that is outside of Fayetteville.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, we're in Lillington, so we're right between Raleigh and the Fayetteville Fort Bragg area.
Right off Highway 401?
Yes, pretty much.
Excellent. Mark, tell us about Metrotham Con, dates, times, all that good stuff. Where can people get more information, the social medias and websites and all that?
Yes, sir. So Metrotham Con Episode 2, Oh the Horror, is in Chattanooga, Tennessee, April 30th through May 2nd. You can get tickets, find out all the guest lists, all the panels that'll be happening, all the events, live music, all that good stuff at metrothamcon.com. You could also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube at MetrothamCon. Be sure to tune in every Monday at 8 p.m. via Facebook. We do a monthly or a weekly live show. We have the lovely ladies of Metrotham that do the live show on a weekly basis. We do that live on location sometimes. It's a lot of fun. We do special guest announcements. We do giveaways. They talk about all things pop culture. So that's a really fun show. We have Metrotham Tonight, which is our nerdy, think of Jimmy Fallon meets SNL. So we open with a comedy skit, and then we go into like a Tonight Show type thing where we have a celebrity guest on. We do an interview. The guys that host that are fantastic. They're hilarious. Those things are funny. Find us on YouTube for that. We also have our gaming channel. You can watch me, myself, and several other staff get on there and play tabletop gaming and console gaming and all that good stuff. But yeah, right now we've got our stimulus package going on our tickets. We know that money is tight with everybody. So we have reduced our weekend badge prices to just $20 for the weekend for all 3 days. We also have a Metrotham Con Forever badge. That is $200. You buy that, you get into every show moving forward. That has done really well for us so far this year. We've sold quite a few of those. And you basically get the VIP perks every single year with that Forever badge. But we've got a fantastic guest lineup, haunted attraction, escape rooms, tabletop gaming, console gaming, panels, several bands coming in. 144 vendors in our vendor hall. We've got a children's room for crafts and things like that. We have after hours stuff if you're more into burlesque shows and all that stuff. But yeah, it's going to be a fun time. Chattanooga, Tennessee, April 30th through May 2nd, Metrotham Con.
Looking forward to it. And Paul, I know you have a lot of websites and social medias where people can get information about Haunters Against Hate, the event, when it's happening, where it's happening, and all that.
It's happening July 30th through August 1st in Louisville, Kentucky at the Crown Plaza. You can go to hahtheevent.com, or you can go to hauntersagainsthate.com, and that will also give you a link to the HAH, the event website, where you can purchase tickets, day passes, weekend pass, VIP pass. You could order the convention t-shirt. You can book your hotel room with a special rate through that. And yes, I'm on Haunters Against Hate is on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. There is an event, HAH, the event on Facebook as well. So, and we'll have the vendors, we'll have the haunts, we'll have a couple of the celebrities. We're going to have the award show, which is very important to me, at least, and quite a few drag shows, actually. That should be quite entertaining. There's going to be an after party sponsored by the American Horrorplex. in Louisville, Kentucky on Saturday night after the event is closed. So that's where you go, HAHTheevent.com, and that's 2 E's, THEEVENT. So.
Nice. Will that after hours event be at the American Horrorplex?
Yes, it will. And it will be a $20 admission, and you'll get a behind the scenes tour of the entire haunt. We're not going to do an actual like walk through haunt where people get scared because it's probably going to be so brutally hot on July 31st in Louisville, Kentucky. So I don't think that's wise. So it'll be that. They're planning on having a car show. DJ Fear is going to be there, who is from Fear Fair and Seymour, and he'll be spinning music there. So it should be a lot of fun.
Nice. Well, folks, it does look like the convention season is slowly starting to come back into the world after a year of basically being shut down. These are some folks you need to support because they are just getting started in this business. And of course, we want everybody to succeed in this business for the purposes of we frankly just love conventions and love going to these things. But we also want to thank our great hosts for their questions and their comments. Storm is not with us tonight, so we'll go straight to Meat Hook Jim.
I'm excited to see this, listening to you guys tonight and all your plans and what you've got going moving forward. I'm very happy to hear it. I wish I could go to every con, but unfortunately my bank account is limited. But definitely I'm going to make it out to Haunters Against Hate because it's the closest one. Paul, I hope you have I hope you all have great shows. I really do. This is exciting, and this is what we need. Like Drew said, after all the lockdowns, we need some of this just to not go stir crazy.
Absolutely. Also want to thank Jerry Vane.
Well, I mean, listening to all of this, it's like, okay, well, shot number 1's in the books. Shot number 2's in a couple weeks. Who knows? You might see me on your doorstep, and if you do, well, please don't slam the door too hard.
Or at least step back from it. My name is Drew
I'm
Badger.
not smart enough for that.
No comment. My name is Drew Badger down in Charlotte, and providing a public service by not taking Princess Trainwreck to Hunters Against Hate. But you might see me at Carolina Fearfest. You might see me at Metrotham Con. If you do, come up and say hi. I don't bite. Well, not too hard. This is the Roundtable of Terror here on The Big Scary Show.
Yeah, we know for a fact that Princess Trainwreck will come out after much liquid libation and liquid courage and bragging rights.
No comment.
We have video.
No comment.